Welcome back to the Takeout. Aid groups are warning of a growing humanitarian crisis in the Middle East due to the war with Iran. The International Rescue Committee says more than 1 million people have already been displaced in Lebanon. The World Food Program estimates more than 45 million people could face extreme food shortages if the war doesn't end by the middle of this year. Matthew Hollingworth joins us now. He's Assistant Executive Director for Operations at World Food Program. Great to see you here in Washington. And you said you've had some pretty helpful meetings this week. I want to start with the situation in Lebanon specifically, because you were once director there of the program. What have you and your colleagues seen in that part of the Middle East since this war began?
So good evening, Ed. Thanks for inviting me on. Clearly, Lebanon today is in absolute dire straits. We've had, as you said, 1 million people displaced, 20% of the population. That's like California and Texas being, everybody being displaced. So it's a huge number for that country. People, unfortunately, have been displaced many times before. There was a war in 2024. This is the same 1 million people who've been displaced again. They already lost their homes, their jobs, everything they owned. Many of their families have been injured and hurt or even killed in the past, and now they're going through it again. We're serving around 265,000 people right now across the country, but particularly in 300 shelters where we're providing food every day to people, both cooked food and rations, and cash support to those that can't afford to stay in rental accommodations. It's really, really tough for people. They're absolutely petrified that this will get worse. They're petrified that troops will come into their homes and their areas. They're really frightened they'll never be able to go home.
And on top of the vast logistical and financial costs of those kinds of operations, now we're seeing, of course, the increase in gas prices. Americans, of course, think about it as they fill up the pump here. But what on earth does the increase of gas prices do to humanitarian work, especially in the Middle East, the work you do in Africa and across Europe?
As you said, we are warning that 45 million people could be added to what is already an unmanageable number, 318 million people who face severe acute food insecurity today if the high fuel prices continue through June. Why? Because that has a ripple effect on everything. High fuel costs is high food costs. And so we are facing a food access crisis. People will simply not be able to afford to put food on the table, certainly not 2 times a day. And in countries that are already facing high levels of poverty and vulnerability, it can only get a lot worse. We're seeing tremendous needs in East Africa, Southern Africa, Central Africa, West Africa, also in places like Yemen, in Afghanistan and Pakistan and Bangladesh. Places like those are going to really, really suffer. That's why we are absolutely, without question, calling for a ceasefire, a change in the situation. Fuel levels may come down fast, but food prices, when they go up, it's very sticky. They don't come down fast. We saw that after the Ukraine invasion. We saw that after COVID, and it really is, this is the difference between life and death for people across poorer countries in the world.
In our remaining minute or so, I would be remiss if I didn't ask about Rafah as well, because the crossings have reopened there in recent days. That obviously a dire situation that's been playing out for years, and now we have the situation at the other end of the region. What is the latest out of Rafah?
So we are getting food in. It's not as much as we need to through Karam Shalom into the Strip. We're feeding and supporting up to 1.5 million people there. But we'd certainly need to get more assistance in. We saw a big improvement. There's no question it is so much better than it was when we were facing famine, when people were absolutely, desperate for any kind of food to go in. But what we need now is consistent aid going in and the commercial goods, but there needs to be a balance between the two. So many people can't afford the commercial goods that are going in. This crisis is going to make it even harder.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you stopping by here at the end of your meetings in Washington. I hope we can speak again from wherever you are, chiefly Rome, of course. But thank you for being here, Matthew Hollingworth. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
The World Food Program.